Welcome everyone. I'll bet you didn't know that I was raised by a mermaid. Well, not really a mermaid, but my mother loves the sea. She's 86 years old and she still drives to go down to see the ocean every day. And it still brings her joy, just like when she was a young girl who goes swimming just about every day. And I think I love the sea because of my mom. And I'm trying to instill this same love into my children, especially my daughter. So I thought I would do a mermaid today in honor of my mother, and this is how you do it. You go to your search engine and look for mermaid silhouettes and pick out your favorite. This was mine. I just thought she looked very mysterious and beautiful. So I printed her out and then got some very sharp scissors and cut her out. And I found that on some of the smaller things I needed my little craft knife here, and that worked really well. And then I just finished it off with the scissors. And I set her aside and pressed her in between two heavy books while I worked on the canvas. This is a 9x12 canvas. And I'm going to take off the wrapping, and then I'm going to paint the edges black with my Martha Stewart black satin. And then let that dry. And then I have three different shades here, the purple and a couple shades of blue. And I'm going to spread those on with a big brush and sort of blend them together and out to the edges. This will be the background for our mermaid, sort of making an undersea look. Just blend it together. It doesn't have to be perfect. You're going to be dotting over the top of this. And I found that it kind of dripped over the edges a bit, so I just wiped it off with my finger and a damp paper towel, and then I used the black satin to touch up the edges to make them look nice and clean. There we go. Now I'm going to measure down 4 inches from the light down to the medium shade blue and use my charcoal white pencil to mark that on either side. And then I'm going to draw a wavy line from one point to the other. Now we just grabbed a bunch of paint here. I will list them in the comments, but really you just use any paint. It doesn't really matter. You just want to be in lighter shades of blue and blue-green, and then you're going to mix that with white just to bring the value down about 2 shades. And we're going to use this to make sort of radiant mandalas in the top of this design. So I used some pearl paints and some glossy paints, and I mixed them up with titanium white. And I'm going to use tools from my Pittsburgh Transfer set, but you can really use any dotting tool. That's why I didn't show the sizes here. It doesn't really matter. We're not counting dots for this design. We're not making sure that we have exactly the right size. It just doesn't matter. Just make them go around in a circle, kind of lining up with one with the other. You can use big ones and little ones, and then big ones again and little ones again. That's the fun of this design. No stress. Just do a mixture of small dots and large dots using these same tones of blue and light green and white. And you're just going to make a little radiant circle here, and then you're going to do it again. Doesn't really matter where you put it. We're going to be sort of making this go behind the first one, and you can see that I'm stopping at the curvy line. Now I'm putting in another one. I'm always starting with a white center dot and then a first row of white dots around that, and I thought I'd do a second row of white dots on this one, and then I went to the pale blue. You can see I'm just lining them up. And then I went to the pale green. Another thing I like about this design is it's very forgiving. It doesn't have to be perfect like some of our other mandala designs. You don't have to be exactly right on with the spacing on this, and it's still going to look great. I decided to offset that row, and then I'm going to fill in with some other dots. Using my manicure stylus for those small dots. You can see that I'm not too worried about spacing here. Thought I'd start another one right up there. Doesn't really matter. And start repeating the same pattern. Just using the colors in different order. Going right up to the edge there. You just kind of snug one in behind the other and then fill up the space with more dots. I decided to do some bigger rows on this one. The effect of this will be that you are in the water with the mermaid, and you're sort of looking up at her from below where the water is darker. And as you look up, the sunlight is coming in through the surface of the water, and it's making this radiant sort of look at the top of the water. So once we get it all dotted, you'll see how this works out. Okay, looks like we've got space for one more there. I'm going to stick that right up in the corner. I put a couple top dots on these, not too much. You don't want these to be too fancy smancy. Really, they're just a background. But you can see as I pull the camera back, it really doesn't matter how fancy they are. They just make a really cool, sparkly effect. Now I'm dotting that curvy line. You can see that I'm sort of walking the dots, and then I walk them back to where they meet in the center. So we're getting a curve to the line. I'll start with some fatter dots, and then I'll walk them down to tiny dots. Boop, 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 boop. And then I'll walk backwards the other way to meet that tiny dot in the middle. Again, going from fat dots to small dots. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then I'll walk backwards to meet that. And that just gives the line a beautiful curve. This is the separation between the lighter water at the top and the darker water down below where the mermaid will be. Now I'm just mixing up a bunch of colors. I just had these laying around, half full bottles, and they're a dark blue, they're light blue, there are several shades of purple, there's metallics, there's pearls, there's satins, and there's gloss paint in this mix. And I mixed some of them together so I would have transitional colors, because I want to go gradually from blue to purple on this lower section of the canvas. So you're just going to be dotting this entire surface here with all of these colors, and you want it to go kind of from light to dark, with the darker purple down at the bottom and the lighter blue at the top, and then there'll be a section in the middle that is quite a bit lighter, and that's going to be the space where we'll put the mermaid. So I used some dotting tools, and then I thought I really wanted some big fat dots, so I used a brush and just really loaded it and just barely touched it to the canvas to leave some big thick dots. You can see how that's giving a lot of texture. And that's what we're going for on this. So it's really a mixed media project. So we're starting to really look like we've got some texture here, but there's still space between those dots. So I'm going to go back and just keep on dotting, mixing a little bit of the purple up with the blue and the blue down with the purple, just to make a nice blend between the two colors. And you can see that there's pearl, there's metallic, there's satin, there's glossy, really filling up that space. So let that dry completely overnight if need be, and then we're going to get out our decoupage. So it's nice and dry. I've got a sponge brush here. We'll get the mermaid out. She's nice and flat. You can see where she'll be sitting on there. You're going to start with the glossy Modge Podge and get a good coating on there and figure out where that mermaid's going to go and stick her on. And then you're immediately going to brush over the top and make sure you get all the air bubbles out, all the way out to the edges. And that's your first coat. You're going to let that dry or use your blow dryer. Now use the Sparkle Modge Podge with a small brush after you've stirred it up really well. And you're just going to use the Sparkle Modge Podge on her fins and on her hair, leaving her body more of a matte black. Nice thick coating on that, and again, let that dry. I also did some Modge Podge top dots on those white centers. And then do a second coat of the Sparkle Modge Podge on the hair and on her tail fin. And once that dries, it will give it a really, really beautiful iridescent shine. So I've decided to add some Swarovski crystals on her tail fin. I used fuchsia, tanzanite, sapphire, heliotrope, and Sirius. She's going to have a beautiful sparkling tail fin. And there she is. And it doesn't really show in this, but her hair is very iridescent too. I just love how this turned out. Thanks for watching, everyone.